She had folded the letter so many times that the creases had softened into threads. By the time the train finally slowed, the paper was warm from her palms, damp where her thumbs pressed too hard. Anna kept it anyway, as if the words inside might vanish if she let go. Outside the window the land opened wide and bare, a flat horizon stitched with low grass and a sky too big for her heart to hold. This was where the letter had promised a life. This was where she had come because no other door had opened. She stepped down onto the platform with a single suitcase and the feeling of being misplaced. The air smelled of coal smoke and dust. Men in worn coats waited, some with flowers that looked apologetic, some with eyes that slid past her as if she were a thing on a list already crossed out. She felt herself shrinking, shoulders rounding, breath shallow. She was 28, not young enough to be cherished on sight, not bold enough to pretend she did not care. The letter had been careful. It spoke of a house, a farm outside town, a need for companionship. It did not speak of affection. It did not promise love. She had answered anyway, because the city had closed its fists around her and left her with nothing but long days sewing seams for other women's happiness and nights listening to neighbors argue through thin walls. She had imagined this place as a blank page. She had imagined herself rewritten. A man stepped forward at last, tall, with a beard that hid his mouth. He held his hat in his hands as if unsure what to do with it. His eyes were tired, but kind in a distant way. "Anna?" he asked. She nodded. Her name sounded strange in his voice, stretched by the accent of this land. "I am Thomas Hale." They shook hands. His grip was careful, almost apologetic. There was no bouquet, no smile that reached for her. She felt the small stab of disappointment anyway and hated herself for it. They rode in silence in a wagon that creaked like an old complaint. The farm appeared slowly, a house hunched against the wind, fields waiting to be persuaded into yielding anything at all. Anna watched Thomas from the corner of her eye. He seemed carved from the land, weathered and patient, someone who endured rather than dreamed. When they reached the house, a little girl stood on the porch. She was small, her hair a tangle of sun and dust, her dress too short for her legs. She watched them with open seriousness, her hands clenched around the porch rail. "This is my daughter," Thomas said. "Lila." Anna's heart stumbled. The letter had not mentioned a child. Lila did not smile. She looked at Anna as if measuring something invisible. Then she turned and disappeared inside without a word. "I hope that is all right," Thomas said quickly. "Her mother passed 2 years ago." Anna nodded again. Words felt too heavy. She followed him inside, into rooms that smelled of soap and old wood, into a life already shaped by absence. The first weeks passed like a careful dance. Anna learned the rhythms of the house, the way the floorboard near the stove complained, the way Thomas took his coffee strong and silent. Lila watched her constantly, from doorways, from the corner of the table. She spoke little, answered questions with nods or shrugs. At night Anna lay awake listening to the wind worry the eaves and wondered what place there was for her here. She cooked. She cleaned. She tended the small garden with hands that remembered hunger. Thomas thanked her in the same quiet way he thanked the weather when it held. Once, in town, she heard women whisper. "Mail order," one said, not bothering to lower her voice. Anna felt the word settle on her like dust, unavoidable, impossible to shake off. She went home and cried into a towel so no one would hear. It was Lila who found her. The girl stood in the doorway, eyes wide, uncertain. Anna turned away, ashamed, but small footsteps approached anyway. A hand touched her arm, light as a question. "Are you hurt?" Lila asked. "No," Anna said, her voice thick. "Just tired." Lila nodded, as if this made sense. She sat beside her, close enough that Anna could feel the warmth of her. They stayed like that for a long time, the silence stretching but not breaking. After that, something shifted. Lila began to follow Anna into the kitchen, to ask questions about where she came from, about the city with its tall buildings and endless people. Anna told her stories while kneading dough, while mending socks. She laughed more than she had in years, surprised by the sound of it. Thomas watched this with something like relief, and something else Anna could not name. One evening, after a storm that left the fields shining and the air clean, Thomas spoke at last. "I did not expect you to stay," he said. "Most do not." "Stay?" Anna asked, her heart tightening. He shrugged. "They see the land, the work, they leave. And you?" She asked softly. "What did you expect?" He looked at his hands. I expected someone to help raise my child. To keep the house from feeling empty. Love is, he paused. A luxury. Anna felt the old ache rise. She thought of the letter, of the careful words. She thought of how she had come here because she believed she was unlovable, because this was the best she could hope for. I see, she said. That night she dreamed of doors closing. The next day, a letter arrived. It bore the stamp of the city, the handwriting of her sister. Inside were news of a job, a small room, a chance to return. You do not have to stay, the letter said. You deserve more. Anna folded it, feeling the weight of choice press on her chest. She watched Lila in the yard, chasing a chicken with fierce determination, laughing. She watched Thomas mend a fence, his movements steady, his back bent against the ears. She packed her suitcase. Lila found it by the door. Her face went pale. Are you leaving? She asked, her voice very small. Anna knelt. I might have to, she said. Sometimes grown-ups make choices that hurt. Lila looked at the suitcase, then at Anna. She stepped closer, so close Anna could see the freckles on her nose. She leaned in and whispered, as if afraid the house itself might hear. Can you be my mommy? The words struck like a bell. Anna's breath left her in a rush. She had imagined being wanted in vague, distant ways. Not like this. Not with such simple, devastating honesty. Lila's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. My mama used to sing to me when it stormed, she said. You sing too. Anna gathered her into her arms, the suitcase forgotten. She felt the child's heartbeat against her own, fast and hopeful and terrified. She thought of all the times she had told herself she was unwanted, unchosen. She thought of how this small girl had chosen her without hesitation. That night, Anna told Thomas about the letter. About the suitcase. About Lila's words. Thomas listened, his face unreadable. I will not ask you to stay, he said at last. You came here for reasons of your own. You owe me nothing. Anna looked at him, really looked. At the lines around his eyes, earned by worry and care. At the man who had survived loss and still offered space for another. I do not owe you, she said. But I might want to. They stood there, uncertain, on the edge of something neither had planned. Weeks turned into months. Anna unpacked the suitcase, then packed it again, then left it in the attic. She learned the land, learned how to coax green from brown, how to read the sky. Thomas began to talk more, to tell stories of his wife, of how laughter used to fill the house. They grieved together in small ways, quietly, without ceremony. One night, another storm came. Lila crawled into Anna's bed, trembling. Anna sang, her voice low and steady. When the thunder faded, Lila slept, her hand curled in Anna's shirt. In that moment, Anna understood something she had been too afraid to name. Love was not a luxury. It was a choice, made and remade, in kitchens and fields and whispered questions. She never sent the letter back. She wrote instead, telling her sister she had found a place where she was needed, where she was learning how to belong. Years later, when Lila stood tall and strong, calling Anna mama without hesitation, Anna would remember the train, the platform, the men who had looked past her. She would remember the fear that had brought her here, and the child who had seen her anyway. Sometimes love arrives not as a grand promise, but as a whisper in a quiet house, asking a simple, impossible question, and waiting for you to be brave enough to answer yes.